Welcome to Chatsunami. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Chatsunami. My name's Satsunami and joining me today is none other than the one and only hypnotic podcaster herself. It is Cindy Brainerd from the Hypno Wellness podcast. So Cindy, thank you so much for coming on to Chatsunami today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, honestly, me too. And I have to say, we were definitely trying to align the planets, weren't we? Just trying to find a time that suited us both and everything. And I was just like, oh, please, time zones, don't do this to me again.
Well, this is a perfect time zone right now. So you're at, 7 and I'm at 1.
Yeah, exactly. Pulling the curtain back a bit there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. I'm taking care of my husband right now. He had plantar fasciitis surgery, so it's been interesting.
Oh, well, I hope he gets better soon.
Oh, thank you.
So, as I was saying there, you're, of course, the host of the wonderful Hypno Wellness podcast. And I have to say, I just come across your podcast a while ago, and I say this to every guest, but I don't mean it in a catch-all scenario, but you run an absolutely fantastic podcast. Before we talk about your brilliant podcast, I've got to get this out of the way first. Was your podcast a product out of COVID and the lockdowns?
No, actually, it wasn't. My mother has Alzheimer's, and I actually stopped being a hygienist. I kind of retired from being a hygienist, and I kind of needed something to fill my time when she had to go into the nursing home. And I have always been interested in hypnosis, and I actually took a course a long time ago. It was a dental hypnosis course, and I never got to use it. So that's kind of how it happened.
And I've got to say, it is quite an interesting, I hope you don't mind me saying this, a very interesting career shift. Do you get that a lot from people that say, oh, so what did you do before? And you say, I was a dental hygienist. And they go, what?
Yeah, I get that a lot. It's something that I've always been interested in. Hypnosis has always just fascinated me. You know, I've read so many books on it, and I wanted to implement it in dental. But of course, I live in the South, and a lot of people equate hypnosis with the devil or something. You know, they have a misconception of it. And so it never kind of took off. So when I got back into hypnosis, in order to do anything with it, I was like, well, I'll just do the YouTube. I'll do a podcast.
Yeah, that is quite interesting because I have to say, when you think of the word hypnosis, and I was listening to one of your earlier episodes about when you were talking about the role of hypnosis in certain films, like The Manchurian Candidate and Get Out, things like that, where it almost has this somewhat mystical element to it that people associate it with brainwashing and mind control and things like that. It's safe to say it's quite a stereotype, isn't it?
It really is. I go on Reddit quite a bit, and we have a hypnosis site that's on there that I go on quite a bit. And we get a lot of people with, oh, can I brainwash a person into liking me? Can I grow extra? My body part can grow bigger, things like that have absolutely nothing to do with hypnosis. And yeah, so a lot of people do have a misconception about hypnosis. And in America, we definitely do, especially in certain places.
I have to say, I do think that films and certain TV shows really have a lot to answer for, probably.
They do. They really do. Hypnosis is something that if I'm going to try to make you do something and you don't want to do it, it's not going to work for you. There's a difference between hypnosis and brainwashing somebody. And in order to brainwash somebody, you have to really put them through the ringer. So just going to a regular hypnotist, they're not going to be able to brainwash you. Not like that. Not like that at all.
Dear listeners, I'm sorry you had to hear it first. Yeah. That's Hypno exclusive here.
In fact, whenever I retook my certification, I used a person from Scotland. His name, in fact, I was telling Mama D on her podcast about Steve Burns. I couldn't quite remember all of it, his name and everything, but I wrote it down this time. But it's Steve Burns from the Scottish Center of NLP. And when I retook my certification, I used him because people in England, Scotland, y'all use hypnosis a lot more than we do here. It's very interesting. Y'all are more progressive in that than we are.
Do you know, funny enough, I've never never really overlapped. It might come as a surprise, but I've never overlapped with hypnosis and the hypnosis community in Scotland myself. But I know it's used in therapy and other practices like that. But I was listening to that interview that you did with Mama D from Petals of Support, and I have to say, absolutely fantastic interview. But my ears perked up because I was out with my dog, I was walking there listening to your episode, and then you said, oh yeah, I learned from someone in Scotland, and I was like, what? I had to stop. My dog was like, come on, let's go. I'm like, no, just a minute. What was that?
I have ties to Scotland. I don't know if you noticed, my maiden name is Sinclair. And so my grandfather is from northern Scotland, and my granny is, I can't exactly remember where she said they were from, but her parents are from there. But they moved here and they moved to Mississippi. So she has Scottish parents, but she was born here. So both of my grandparents are Scottish.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It really is. I've never been there. I need to go. I need to see. I know Sinclair is kind of like the name Smith here, where it's just everybody has the name.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Scotland is absolutely beautiful, and I'm biased. Sue me for legal reasons. That's a joke, but
It's definitely much more appealing than Alabama.
is it that bad? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't have the beauty of, I don't know, the greenery and I guess we have green, but it's just plain green.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You have the Highlands. We have Birmingham.
True. My partner, she's not from Scotland, so I remember the first time she came over and we were driving through fields and things. I don't mean literally through a field, I mean like beside fields and things.
Right, oh yeah.
And you can see hills in the distance and whatnot, and she was telling me, wow, this is beautiful, this is such a wonderful place. To me, I'm kind of looking around going, yeah, it's all right, you know?
I guess, yeah, we must do that to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe somebody can see the beauty of Alabama that I can't see because I've been here. Because I know I went to Nebraska and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Y'all, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love it so much. And my friend was like, this is Nebraska.
That magical wonderland.
I think she was looking at me like, are you crazy? This is just Nebraska. Oh yeah, I can definitely see how people can find the wonder in other places that we don't necessarily see.
Oh no, absolutely. Because the only experience I've really had with America was years and years ago. I went to Chicago, and I mean, beautiful city in the centre. And, you know, I'm saying that so the big bean enthusiasts don't come and hunt me down. I still don't know what that's all about. And they're very passionate about their, is it Willis Tower, Sears Tower? There's a big controversy over that, what to call it. Yeah. And yeah, I think the only other state that I went to was Wisconsin. I mean, they were nice places, but you do kind of think of home and the sprawling fields and the hills and things. And don't get me wrong, I come from a town, but at the same time, you know, I could still see the hills and whatnot from my house. But at the same time, when you're looking around certain places, you're kind of like, oh, that's a barren field. Things like that. It has got a lot of beauty, I suppose, to the country. And plus, you guys, your country is way bigger than ours. And
oh, yes.
As a Brit, I have to swallow my pride and say that, but you've got hundreds of other places as well.
Right. Now, we do have a vast country. I don't think people actually realize how big it is, especially when I've talked to some people on forums and stuff that live in Britain, and they're like, oh my gosh, I had to travel an hour. I'm like, an hour is nothing here. If you were to travel from the top of Alabama to the bottom of Alabama, it takes about 6 hours.
Wow.
Just to get through Alabama. It's very, very large. And I don't think sometimes people wrap their head, and I think Americans sometimes don't wrap their head around it because they think, oh, well, she lives in Alabama. She could just go to Disney World because Florida's right there. It takes us 10 hours to get to Disney World.
Wow. I think it was a couple of months ago, my partner and I went down to London, and while that was amazing and everything, that took us about, on the train at least, about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. And, you know, you kind of take it for granted and you moan about, I mean, what British person wouldn't complain about travel and whatnot? But you know, you have this convenience there, well, when the trains run, but that's a whole other argument. But
yeah,
you go down and everything and you think, wow, 5 hours and, well, I'm technically in a different country. You are and you aren't. It's a complicated issue.
Yeah, that is complicated.
Yeah. It's like you're in England, you're not in Scotland, but you're still part of the UK. But
I know, that's so crazy how that is. And
oh, yeah.
4 hours to us, let's see, if I were to drive 4 hours, I could get to Huntsville, Alabama. My husband actually has made that drive plenty of times. Birmingham is like 2.5 hours. No, 3 hours, 3 hours. So yeah, that was nothing to us. We can just get in the car and just drive and listen to music and podcasts.
So what you're saying is the Hypno Wellness podcast will be doing a road trip special?
I hope so. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun to go to Scotland and to, talk to some of the hypnotists there. That would be awesome.
Because I have to say, before that, I never really gave it much of thought that there was such a large community here and obviously licensed professionals, not just people walking around with pendulums in their pockets.
Right. Here, you don't have to be regulated. There's no regulation on hypnosis. But I think I just do rudimentary things. Kindness, be kind, and, use hypnosis for motivation, that kind of stuff. But there are some hypnotists that actually have a degree in therapy. And so if you can find somebody and you're having some real issues, and we're not just talking like smoking and stuff like that, but real issues, they can really work wonders because you're using hypnosis and you're using therapy to get down to the root of your issue. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I hate that they don't do that here.
Going back to what we were saying before, there does seem to be that stigma that even in 2024, that, as we said, it's very much attached to, I don't want to say an evil force, but you know what I mean? That kind of, oh, look, it's terrible, that it's more of a party trick, that kind of scorn, really, that a lot of people seem to have.
Definitely. Especially here in the South, a lot of people are very, very, very religious, and they don't understand that they're hypnotized all the time. You can drive down the road, and you know how sometimes your car just kind of takes you where you are?
Mm-hmm.
That's being hypnotized. If you're reading a good book and you're really into it, that's hypnosis. Like, there's a bunch of ways that we hypnotize ourselves, and it's not scary, and it's not rooted in evil and all that kind of stuff. But they get scared, and you can try to explain things to people, but if they're deeply rooted in something, it's very hard to change their mind.
That's the thing, though. When they are thinking of hypnosis, they are thinking of the very scary element of it, that, oh, they're going to lose control, they're not going to have autonomy anymore, which, as you said, and you point it out very well in your episodes as well, and I have to say they are very relaxing episodes, so...
Oh, thank you.
I do agree with your disclaimer when you say, please don't drive or operate heavy equipment or anything like that. Because, yeah, I have to say, I think I would probably drift off and then be like, how did I end up in this ditch? Anyway.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to operate heavy machinery whenever you listen to my episodes.
Oh, no, absolutely. Oh, no, absolutely.
How I do my episodes is I try to have a teachable moment in the beginning, and then I cut, and then I have my little small network thing that we do, and then I do the hypnosis session. Now, not all of my episodes have a hypnosis session, but that's how I like to break it up. So you could listen to the very first part. And then save it for later.
Yeah, just pausing the episodes quickly. Before you hit the motorway, just like, nope.
Nope, I can't listen to it. But actually, you could listen to it. You just wouldn't want to do all of the steps. You know, you wouldn't want to close your eyes. You wouldn't want to take deep breaths, because there are walking meditations. You can do walking meditations. Those are really interesting. It's kind of like hypnosis, but not really with meditation. But there are a lot of those out there.
See, before you got into hypnosis, so you said that you were always quite interested in the topic and such. Did you realise there was such an extensive amount of different methods, different techniques, or were you just really scratching at the surface initially?
Well, in the beginning, when I got started and a long time ago, I learned about different methods. And the more you get into it, the more you find all of these people have different ways of doing hypnosis, like Milton Erickson. There's those types of techniques. There's even something called the swan technique, where you use your hand. It's amazing amazing. People have discovered different ways of doing things, or you come up with your own. And I just think that's really fascinating because hypnosis, you just can read so much about it and then you just kind of get deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's just fascinating to me.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely a topic that, of course, no pun intended, that you can spiral into.
Yes. And then you can get on different aspects of it, like the NLP, which I never really got into much of that. And I don't really understand much of it just because I really enjoy the hypnosis. So NLP was like neuro linguistic programming. I think that's what that's called. I just haven't got into anything like that, but I just love to read about it.
It's a very interesting topic because as someone who went to college for a year and studied social sciences, and one of those topics, of course, was psychology. I feel as if psychology and hypnosis, not mutually all the time, but it does go hand in hand sometimes, doesn't it?
I totally agree. I wish that they would use it more here, the therapist, just because it has so many benefits. And if somebody can take therapy and work it in with hypnosis, that would be great. If I had the chance to do it all over again and not become a hygienist, and they had something like therapy and hypnosis, I would have done that. I would have been there. I'd been like, sign me up. But no, I did 25 years of dental hygiene instead of hypnosis. But I can say that whenever I was a hygienist, I could talk people down. If I couldn't talk them down, you're not going to have it done without having medication. I think it was my voice. I have that kind of voice that's, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. And hold my hand. And this procedure will be over in just a minute.
Don't operate any heavy machinery right now.
That's right.
You're going to be fine.
Dennis, keep your eyes open.
Yeah, root canal's gone wrong.
But I can say every once in a while I work for a dentist that's an endodontist, and I do try to calm people down. I use my voice and everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. It's kind of like hypnotizing, but not really. They're still terrified.
Oh, no, absolutely. Because I know we talked about a lot of stereotypes with hypnosis, but there's a lot of stereotypes with dentists, I have to say. Once again, films, TV shows, they do not help. Little Shop of Horrors, Catchy Tune, did not help.
They make dentists and dentistry out to be horrible. When people come in for a root canal, they are terrified. Like, they think you're going to cut their foot off, and it's just a root canal. And you have to try to explain to them, it's just like getting a filling done. It's exactly like getting a filling done. I think one of the things that really scares people is when they're not given an antibiotic before they have their root canal. And so there's infection there. And sometimes you can get what's called a hot tooth. And if that tooth can't be numbed up all the way, then you have a problem. But that's just a bad dentist.
The last time I was at the dentist, I really like my dentist, although the dentist before that I was not a fan of, but that's a story for another day. But the one that I have is, I've had him since I was really young, and, he has a great way with talking to people. He's very cheery. He's like, okay, we're going to do this. Right, we're doing this. It reassures you. I remember I was getting the dental bridge fitted, and he was poking in there, and he was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And then 2 seconds later, he went, and then he walked away. And I was like, what? Why? He never explained. He just went back to his job. I was like, why would you do that? What did you say? Like, that is the worst thing. Any dentist listening, that is probably the second worst thing other than yelling in terror. The second worst thing is saying,
Yeah, that's not a good thing. I used to work for a dentist that would take pictures. He'd be like, I need to take a picture of this, and I'm going to send it to the oral surgeon. And then the patient would be like, oh my God, what?
We've got some good news and bad news. What's the good news? Oh, we're going to name a dental condition after you. What?
I don't know what this is. Hold on just a second. Let me Google it. Literally, it's kind of sad. We do Google some stuff. I am not going to lie to you. We do Google. And sometimes it's your medication. Sometimes it's a condition that you have. And then sometimes it's like, I need a refresher on this.
Yeah.
You know what? In a way, it's a great dentist that actually can admit that they might not know what it is. So that's a good thing. If you have one of those that knows everything, and then they happen to be wrong, that's not good either.
Oh, no, absolutely. You want someone who at least says, okay, I'm not sure how to proceed. Let's take a step back. Let's regroup. Let's see what's going on here. You don't want someone like a bull in a china shop saying, oh, let's get that tooth out. Let's weak it out. No, 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 no. Absolutely
Right.
not. Yeah, I have to say, it's kind of hard not to try and read because obviously you can't really talk with your mouth, stretched open and someone prodding in there at your teeth. But you usually look at your dentist and, the hygienist or whoever's helping them, and you kind of read their faces as if, is this normal? Is this okay? Has he spotted something? And again, it goes back to that thing. You shouldn't really fear it because at the end of the day, your teeth are very, very important. You don't want dentures when you're 12.
No, you don't. Your teeth are so important for your overall health. And now in the United States, dental and health are two separate different things. They don't really take into account that your teeth actually affect your body. So they don't like to pay for a lot of different things.
The way it seems to work here is you still have to pay for dental care, but there's two separate prices. So you've got NHS prices, which are relatively cheaper, but then you've also got the private practices and their prices. But really, see, to be honest, I think it's just the way the wind's blowing that day, they're deciding the prices. Because it's like a couple of years ago, it could have been, obviously this is pre-COVID, but before it could have been cheaper. And then you go back to the dentist after COVID and it's like, yeah, this is going to be hundreds of pounds instead of a couple of pounds. And you're like, what? How?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I started out, which was about 28 years, I can't keep forgetting.
It's okay. We've got time.
It's been a long time. Braces would cost $2,500. Now they're around $7,000 to $8,000 and
Oof.
$10,000 if there's a bad case. I can't justify that jump. I can't tell you why that happened. There should be no reason why braces cost somebody $7,000 or $8,000. That just blows my mind. A crown is the same way. Crowns used to run people about $250, $500, and now they're over $1,000.
I bet the listeners at home were thinking, oh, this is going to be an interesting talk about podcasting and hypnosis. You know what? They're getting an education in dental hygiene. Yeah, it's the old bait and switch.
Honestly, I still talk about dental. I still read. I don't keep up my license anymore because I just didn't see the need for it. I retired my license, but I still read and I still keep up with all the latest things. I'm not going to give up my knowledge of that, but I just didn't want to go back. I did it for so long that I just didn't want to go back. And I love what I do now. Podcasting is so amazing. I've met some just wonderful people, just the people that I have talked to and met, like you. I would never in a million years would have known who you were and got to have this wonderful conversation if it weren't for podcasting and if I were still doing teeth.
Well, you never know. I might have been in Alabama for some dental care.
That's right.
For whatever reason. I'm not quite sure, but
You might have needed a really good dentist for a root canal.
all that podcasting money coming in for a root canal. But out of curiosity, because you were saying that, of course, podcasting is a general outlet for you, and I completely agree with you. Podcasting is one of those things that I don't think many people realise when they get into it, because, the reason I started was because I used to do streaming on Twitch, and during the lockdowns, my friend did a podcast as well, and he was like, oh, this is a cool thing, and I was like, well, I suppose I like talking to people, so why not extend it and just start a podcast? And initially I thought, oh, it's just going to be a side thing, it's not going to matter. Long story short, absolutely fell in love with it. Streaming kind of fell at the wayside, I'm not going to lie, but yeah, podcasting, you meet so many amazing people with it.
I've just loved it so much. I used to do YouTube, but when my mom went into the nursing home and I went to work for the endodontist, the girls that I worked with were like really young, and I'm 50, and they were like 22, 23, they're really young. young. And so they had their little clique. So I would just sit in my car and get my lunch. Well, I started doing anime review. And I did that for a long time until anime just got to be a little bit much for me. The shows themselves, especially the ones that I liked, were just, they were going in a direction that I was like, oh, I know you like anime. Have you ever seen Wonder Egg Priority?
No, actually.
It was something I enjoyed watching. And then it just kind of took a turn of
the weird.
Yeah. And then I just noticed everything that I watched, there was always something that was questionable in it. And so I just kind of had to back away from anime just because it was a little bit, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, my friend and co-host Andrew and I, we actually did an episode on anime tropes. And my God, see actually listing them out and being like, oh, this is a good anime trope, like shouting attack names and, you know, oh, the power-ups and things, oh, they're cool. And then you have to discuss the problematic elements. So you're like, oh, this is going to be a long episode, isn't it?
Yeah. And it gets to me a little bit because I love watching a show and then they'll have something to do with a father and a daughter, like the Wonder Egg Priority. And I'm like, you didn't have to put that in there. That was not appropriate. And just little things, you know, just tiny little things. And I don't know, I just kind of had to back off. And then I started doing movie reviews and I don't know, I just got kind of bored of that. And then I was like, you know what? I love hypnosis. And that's kind of one of the things that I was just like, you know, I'm going to just give up this channel. So I just kind of deleted it. But I love Attack on Titan. I love Dr. Stone, Steins Gate, all of those types of things. They were not problematic like some of the other ones were. But yeah, I love anime too. That's one of my favorite things that I used to love to watch.
Have you been watching any shows recently?
Not recently. I haven't gotten into any more anime. I've just been watching things on Hulu and The Real Housewives.
I remember recently my partner hadn't seen Spy Family.
Oh, yes.
I'm such a sucker for, see, found family type animes and ones that have a kind of slice of life element to it.
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love Spy X Family. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it?
It is really good.
I still haven't seen the film for it, but I've heard nothing but good things. And I have to say, it's not the direction I thought my life would take when I was younger, because I used to be, I mean, I still technically am. I've got a soft spot for animes like Dragon Ball, an anime that we discussed in November. And, you know, on the podcast, we have talked a lot about really various animes, to be honest. We haven't done a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood episode. I'd really like to do that sometime because that is a fantastic anime as well. But then we've also dived into things like Perfect Blue, and some of the films are just absolutely amazing.
Oh, yes. Yes. There are a lot of anime films that are beautifully done. Oh my gosh. I can't think of some of the names right off the top of my head, but the one with the name, what's the...
Your Name.
Oh my gosh. Beautiful. Just beautiful. It was a beautiful story. We went to the movies to see another one. My boys like anime. They're huge anime fans.
Was it a Studio Ghibli film by chance?
No. It was another one of the Your Name.
That's not the one where the person turns into a chair or something, is it?
No. It was done by the same people that did Your Name. Weathering Into You. Weathering has something to do with rain.
I'm totally not Googling in the background.
No. Look that up. I cannot remember what it was. Whispering into you, weathering into you, weathering on me, weathering.
I feel like I'm on an episode of, what is that show? We have to guess the letters.
Yeah. I would be losing right about now.
Oh, so would I.
If my son were here, he'd know. He'd be like, oh, you can't remember that? I'm like, nope.
Oh, Weathering with You.
Weathering with You. Yeah.
There we go. Ding, ding. We won. We did it. Where's our boat? We did it.
Yeah, we went to the movies to see that. Sometimes our movie theater will have an anime showing. And we also are true anime people. We like our subtitles. And I know there's people that they have like the fights between, oh, you use subtitles. Oh, you can't use you dub and sub. That's what it is. But I took Japanese for like 2 years during COVID with the Duolingo app. Yeah. And so I like to hear them talk. I just think it's authentic sounding. It just feels like I'm watching an anime. What was it that we watched? My Hero Academia. My husband watched that. He's not like an anime person, but he watched it with me and we had to watch it dubbed. And I was like, this doesn't feel the same. this doesn't feel the same. Just feels like a cartoon.
I have to say, that's how I feel whenever I have to put on the dub, because when I was going through the lockdowns and things, I went into, obviously I was watching anime, I was watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventures for the first time, I was rewatching other comfort animes like Chunibyo, and just trying to think of what else. There was like hundreds of animes, but then I also developed an addiction to K-dramas. I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado or anything at them, but you definitely can tell, see when you're watching them, especially on Netflix, you can tell when it's in the original language, whether it's of course Japanese, Korean or whatever, that there's so much passion there. You can hear how the original voice actor or actor or actress, they come across, their emotions, their feelings. But then you've got a weird condition called the Netflix condition where I don't know if they hire the same guy or woman. And it's like, oh my God, you did that? Oh, you bastard, I'm going to kill you. And you're
I know, it's horrible. It's like they have no inflection. There's nothing there. They're just like, oh, darling, I see that you're doing this. And you're like, no. Like, no.
Get out of here. There's no emotion. Cut.
Yeah, I would have to fire those people. But what was it? Kobayashi's Dragon Maid?
Oh, yeah.
Crunchyroll. They did this to where the voice actress or whatever, I think she didn't like how it was going, and they changed some stuff. And I don't like it when they change, what they're saying, or they're taking the original piece and they're just doing whatever they want to with it. I don't like that either. So Crunchyroll gets on my nerves a little bit with not following what they're saying.
Funny enough, during October, my friend Andrew and I, we actually talked about the very infamous Ghost Stories dub. Have you ever heard about this?
No, I haven't heard of that.
It was an anime in the 2000s, and it was basically brought over here. It was based off of yokai culture and ghost stories. Literally, what the name implies, it's based off of a group of kids in high school, and they hunt different Japanese ghosts in their, I think it's middle school. I'm not really au fait when it comes to the education levels, but basically that was the premise of it, and it did relatively okay, but then it got dubbed over here by, well, I say over here, America, by a guy called Stephen Foster from ADV Films, and they basically did what some people consider a bridge dub, the first kind of official dub. His job was, as you were saying with Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, the whole point of them changing things was to localize it to make it more, understandable for a Western audience. But for this one, they were putting in references that really just had no right to be in there.
Yeah.
Very politically incorrect humour and whatnot of the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it came out in 2004. It was really bad for that. It's got some funny moments, but I think the controversy outweighs what's good about it. And the weird thing is, if you watch it on Amazon Prime, you can only get, at least in the UK, I don't know if it's the same everywhere else, but you can only get that dub. You can't get the original Japanese. So,
oh, that really sucks. Because sometimes even when you're reading the subtitles, if you understand Japanese just a little bit, you can be like, well, they didn't say that either. So sometimes the subtitles don't even pick up on the little nuances of things that are going on. And I hate whenever somebody takes your material and then turns around and turns it into something completely different. They do that a lot with movies and stuff. I've noticed, like, you'll read the book and then you go to, oh, I'm so excited about the movie. What movie is this? What? You're like, this is not the same thing.
I mean, as someone who had to watch Dragon Ball Evolution and review it, totally agree. That was a tough watch. That was a really tough watch. And I think it's the kind of curse for live action anime. Because, I mean, the only live action anime I've really seen that I liked was, did you see the One Piece one for Netflix?
I did not watch that one, but I have seen little clips of it. I have seen Classroom Assassination.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that? They have a live action of that. Oh my gosh, it's really good. I don't know if you know about Classroom Assassination, but...
The only thing I really know about it, I know they're all trying to kill the teacher who's a yellow octopus like person with a big smiley face. Yeah. He's the most iconic thing, and, I would recognise it a mile off to be like, oh, Classroom Assassination. Do you know anything else about it? Nah.
It's phenomenal. My husband actually watched that one. I was like, oh, wow, he really liked it. And he actually watched it in Japanese, so... I was like, yes.
Oh, wow.
Well, with subtitles.
I mean, well, yeah.
But yeah, if he started watching the Japanese and knew, I would be like, what's going on? He took like 6 years of Spanish and he doesn't know any. We're talking like all through elementary school, college. He can just tell a little bit here and there, but yeah, he's not fluent at all.
During the lockdowns, the two languages that I was focusing on was Mandarin and Spanish. And I have to say, there is nothing like getting your wings clipped than watching a show being like, you know what, my vocabulary, great. The grammar, fantastic. I'm going to watch this show. I'm going to understand everything, every single thing. And then you put it on, no subtitles, and then 2 seconds later,
Yep.
you're in the bath crying. Duolingo be damned, as it were.
I know. I was born in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved to Spain whenever I was younger. So I lived there for like 3.5 years. So I grew up in Spain. You know, when you're just started awakening your mind, you know, and you can tell like what's going on. That's whenever I lived in Spain. Well, we had a lady, we just called her Auntie. She wasn't my aunt. She could speak Spanish, but she couldn't speak their Spanish. So she was speaking the Spanish that she was taught here. And she would get into arguments with people because she was fluent in Spanish that she learned here and not European Spanish.
Yes.
And my mother and me, we do not look anything alike, except for our facial structures. But my mother is olive complected with dark hair and brown eyes. And so is my brother. And then my dad, he has blonde hair and blue eyes and is light skinned. Well, they used to try to talk to my mother all the time and thought she was Spanish because she was olive complected and everything. And it's so funny. How languages are. They just perceive that you can talk this way, or if you try to talk that way. And it was really funny just thinking back on it whenever they were arguing amongst each other. You say it this way. No, you say it this way. No, you say it this way.
Yeah, I really learned that fast when I was learning Spanish because it's like, oh, a car is un carro. And you're like, oh, un carro. It makes so much sense. And then, of course, I was talking to a friend who comes from Spain and she was like, no, it's un coche or something like that. And I'm like, oh, right, so it's not un carro. And it's like, well, it is, but in Latin America, yes.
Right. Yeah, you don't know when you pick up a language or learn a language, you might not be getting the language that you think you are. Like, I don't know what kind of Japanese I was learning because, you know, they all come from different areas in Japan. Some people have a more country accent. Some people have a more, you know, Okinawan accent. You could go there and I don't even know. I guess it's kind of like how America is. You have a Southern accent. You probably can hear my Southern accent. That we have a Northern accent. We have a Midwestern accent. We have a Cajun accent. We have an Appalachian accent. That's how America is. You know, you have different ways of saying things other places.
Yeah, well, it's completely true because when I met my partner for the first time, we were both in China together pre-COVID, and I always remember going over, and I'm going to be honest, and maybe this is breaking the illusion to everyone who thinks I'm still a red panda behind the microphone, so cover your ears right now if you don't want the illusion to be broken. But yeah, I'm over 6 foot, pasty white, I'm like a ghost, blue eyes and everything, and you know, the hair. I don't have blue hair, sorry, just for legal reasons, that's a joke. But, you know, I stand out like a sore thumb over there. And whenever I try to speak Mandarin, over there, they have so many different dialects and things. You've got Hakka, you've got Shanghaiese, you've got just so many. As you were saying, it's like the slang that you have in America versus here versus Australia. You know, it's completely different. But as soon as I turn round to someone, anybody in the street who was waving to me or whatever, and I would say, ni hao, hello, their face, I'm not even joking, their face would utterly drop as if suddenly I was Mr. Polyglot, that I was completely fluent in Mandarin. So then they would reply in neck-breaking speeds of Mandarin, and I would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ting bodong. I don't understand.
You'd be like,
please slow down. I was like, oh my God. But I love languages though. Because funny enough, before I started this podcast and before I went into streaming, I actually attempted to start a language learning channel on YouTube, which pretty much has fizzled out because I've listened back to it and I'm like, my editing was terrible. The audio levels are all out. There's white noise in the background. I'm like, no, this is not great.
I think learning language, it's just amazing. I love other people from other places. And I don't know, I think learning another language is so much fun. And I think people also appreciate it whenever you know their language, you know? And I think it's amazing. I know that there's a lot of controversy with, oh, these people are coming into our country or whatever, but these people are coming into our country and they can speak English. It might not be perfect, but these people know 2 languages. And you sit there and you think about that. They know 2 languages. That's amazing. That's something more than these other people will never be able to do is learn, you know, another language. But they're coming here and they're speaking 2 languages. And they might not be able to speak it fluently, but they can understand it greatly. You know, it amazes me. People learning different languages. And I don't know, I'm just fascinated by it. I think that's why the Japanese was so interesting to me.
It's an absolutely fantastic way to learn about other cultures as well. Again, linking it all back into hypnosis and the dentist here. It is afflicted by this stereotype that you're stuck in school, you have to learn it day in, day out in the most boring of ways. You don't really learn anything dynamic or fun, and mileage may vary depending on your teacher, but, you know, I remember learning French in school, and it was like, où est la bibliothèque, you know?
Oh, yeah. I took 2 years of French, too. I couldn't tell you anything. I know you said library there, or you might have said book.
I just love the word bibliothèque. I think it's just such a wonderful word.
Is it book or is it library? I think it's library.
There'll be that one French listener who tuned into this episode like, oh, I'm going to get you.
Yeah, they're going to be typing, that means book.
That means book.
What's wrong with y'all? 2 years of French. I made a B.
I just actually remembered what book is. I think it's livre. And the reason I remember that is, did you ever watch Hocus Pocus?
Yes, I love that movie.
You know the scene where they try to burn the witches in the big furnace, and then I can't remember why, but they come back again and they come out the oven, and all they've been listening to is a French tape or something. And she goes, I want my book. Bonjour, je veux mon livre. I always remember that scene.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, it's such a good film. I need to rewatch that. It's so good.
I need to rewatch it. Now that you said that, I'm going to have to rewatch it.
Yeah, you usually learn it in school and you get very bad memories of it in a way. And again, not every teacher's going to be like that, but I remember learning it in school. I wasn't really taken by it. And then when I actually left school and I was in university, I started to kind of look into French again. And then I had a very weird moment where I said double or nothing and decided to go for Spanish and Mandarin instead. Don't judge me, but it was interesting. But because of me learning those languages, you know, I got to learn about different cultures. I got to meet amazing people. It's amazing. You're completely right. It's amazing how much you close yourself off without learning a language. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everyone out there has to be 100% fluent, know all the grammar rules and things, because God help me, there's hundreds of them, especially Spanish. I'm looking at you, Spanish. I love the vocabulary, but the grammar is terrible. I think I used to say that. Whenever I was introducing myself in Spanish, I would say the vocabulary is, you know, absolutely amazing, but la gramática is el diablo. Which I would say, yeah, the grammar it was the devil. It's terrible. It's just the worst. And I know that's really rich from me, considering I'm a fluent English speaker, and grammar rules suck too. Oh, they suck so bad.
They do. And English, oh my gosh, I don't even know how people... That's why I said when other people can learn English, oh my gosh, you're doing really well, because we have a lot of rules and then we have a lot of things that don't make sense. Like, why do all of these words are spelled the same way but don't mean the same thing? I mean, sound the same way. No, don't sound the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it is. You're completely right. I get that question a lot when people are like, oh, what does this mean? And I'm like, oh, it means blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go, but why?
I know.
You know that gif of the guy, he's just sitting there on his own, and then he's sitting on the swing, and then he's standing in the pool, and he's got that 1,000-yard stare kind of thing going on. And you're like, that is just me, because I have no idea how my own language works.
I didn't make the rules. Did y'all have to diagram sentences in school?
I'm assuming no.
We used to have to diagram a sentence whenever I was in school. You'd have a sentence and then you'd have to break it down into verbs, pronouns, adverbs, nouns. I don't know if it was just my teacher was a torture teacher, but we used to diagram sentences, and that was hard. You would think it would be easy, but it was very, very, very hard because she had you breaking them down. Like
breaking them down old school, yeah. The biggest jump scare I get is see when I'm learning another language and they break it down like that with the pronoun and the verb and whatnot. And then you look and you're like, that verb should be there. But it's not.
Know.
Does Japanese not work that way? Where it's like the verb at the end?
Yeah, it works that way too, I think. I'm trying to think of how it does work. I don't think it's like Spanish where things are flipped around. To me, that's the hardest part when you're reading something and then you have to try to figure out what it means because it's not in the right places that we're used to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Why am I reading that at the end? Or why is the subject not where I expect it to be? Or, I think sometimes that kind of plays with your mind.
Oh, no, it does. It messes with you entirely.
I know, because it's like math when they tell you there's a formula and you put that formula in and then it's not the formula because there's rules and you're like, what? Like, please just make this easy on me.
I mean, it's a bit like, is it the old painting or philosophical musing of this is not a pipe, like Nespound pipe? And it's like, Nespound formula, this is not a formula. And you're like, well, what is it? How do I work this out?
I know, because I used to do, when you're in school and you're doing algebra and they're like, okay, this is the formula. And then you do the formula, but then they're like, oh, no, this is the rule. And I'm like, well, why did you tell me the formula if this is not right? I barely scraped by in school with math. That was bad.
Oh, no, same. Absolutely same. I was terrible. I scraped by with the bare minimum and I ran with it. I just grabbed it. I left. I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm not ever doing this. I can subtract from 32 and add a few more teeth to 32 if you got some extras. And that was all the math I needed.
Because I have to say, and I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, oh, you never really use it in real life. But beyond the core skills like addition, subtraction, dividing, percentages, that kind of thing, I mean, there's a lot in there that you just have to really be into maths to actually want to explore it all.
I agree. I totally agree. And I know that they say I have never used algebra since that class, the classes that I had to have in high school. I have not used math since then.
I've never been locked in a shop or something and then the shopkeeper comes out and says, if orange is X, then,
I know.
I mean, it's like a very twisted Saw film, but without the violence, just math. Saw +1, if you will.
They should put us into groups, I think. Okay, these kids, they're not good at math very well. We'll send them down a different path.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in school, I remember, again, I wasn't very good at maths, and I think I got one of the lower grades. So I was like, would I be able to do higher maths, which is when you get to 5th and 6th year, you used to do your higher and your advanced higher. I think you still do that now. So about when you're 17, 18. I remember the teacher's face. She was just like, nah, I don't think you're good enough for this. And, I mean, this was the late 2000s. This was the late 2000s. And she was like, nah, I don't think so. Go to the other class. I'm like, oh, man. You know that American thing where it's like, well, believe in yourself. You can do it. You can push through with that indomitable spirit. Nah, this teacher was like, get to the other
Yeah, I know. With me for math, I made a C. And I think the only reason why I had a C is because I would turn in a notebook every day with my homework. And I kept my notebook up like the lady told us to. I would make 100 on my notebook. And I swear to you, that is the only reason I did not have like a D in that class. It's because I had that notebook and I meticulously kept it. Like she said, I did my homework even if it was wrong.
So was that the moment that you were sitting there and thought, God, I wish I was a hypnotist?
I know. I could get out of this class, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, in itself, math class is very much a form of torture / hypnosis in its own, but...
Yes, yes. And especially the way that she had an overhead projector. Because like when I went to school, it was the 90s. So yeah.
Was that the one that they turned on and they had the transparent sheet?
Oh yeah, the one that had the fan in it.
And it smelled as if it was going to burn and burst into flames at any minute.
I'm sure she's retired now because now they have the computer programs and stuff that they use for the overhead. She would have been in heaven.
Because, I mean, the thing, and apologies, I'm going off on a side rant here, but I remember when I was in high school, I went to high school in the early to late 2000s, and that was kind of the transitional period when they started to get smart boards in, connected to the computers. And I always remember not one teacher knew how to calibrate the board. Maybe some of them did, but it was basically like if you were scribbling with one of the electric pens that they had on there, the tip of the pen would be on one side of the board and the other one would be, I don't know, halfway across the ocean or going to the shops or something. So they had to keep recalibrating it. And by that, they had to press these dots that popped up on the screen. But half of them just gave up. They were just like, nah, we're not going to use it today. Or it was very novel when they actually did use them. But...
Oh, wow. Now kids, they're so blessed. They just don't understand. If I went back to school now, I would be a genius. There's ChatGPT, there's Grammarly, there's things that can tell you how to do it would be like the top tier level that you could get if I had all of those things. I would just take advantage of all of it. I would turn in a thesis paper for every paper that I turned in.
Turning that C into a B quite fast.
That's right. Because now you can go online and it shows you how to do it. And there's so many people that can explain things better, like on YouTube. And some people have a knack for explaining things to where you can understand them versus the old math teacher. You know what I'm saying? Kids have it really good nowadays. They just have no idea. I went to school with a chalkboard. Some erasers.
I mean, I have to say, I do miss those days of chalkboards and things. I know the technology is great, but when I was in primary school, they, of course, still had them, but they also had at least a couple of them. It was like, the old Apple computers, but it's like they had the big transparent backs on them, and they had a handful of them between 3 classes. Technically, it was supposed to be 2, but that's another story. But yeah, they had these computers, and it was like, if you were really good, you would be able to play on them and everything.
Oh yeah, we had some of those where you could play Oregon Trail. We used to have a librarian that would make you touch metal before you touch the computer.
Oh, is that in case you get electrocuted or...
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is maybe she was afraid of, how you get electricity and maybe if you put it on the computer, it would mess the computer up. But I remember she used to yell at people, touch the thing before you touch the computer.
So that's where I've been going wrong, right?
You're not touching the metal before you touch your computer. But yeah, that was back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, in summary, touch the metal. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
The wise words
That's
there.
the new catchphrase, touch the metal.
It was quite weird, see, being in that kind of period where new technology is introduced into schools, and you're completely right, nowadays, give them a couple of years if they don't keep slashing their budget and there'll be floating screens going around and whatnot.
I know.
Absolutely crazy, but on the point you were saying there about AI, that is quite an interesting thing because I remember being in university and having to submit every paper that I did online into, I think it was a program called Turnitin or something like that. And basically it would scan it to make sure that you hadn't copied and pasted anything. And the only time, usually I got 2% or 3%, really low percents here. But then one day I forgot to take off the cover page for it. And there was the whole abstract and everything that we were doing. And I got, I think, 30% or something, a really high amount. And I nearly had a heart attack. I was like, oh my God, have I copied all of this? It's like, no, it's just the cover page that the university has given you. That's fine. That's why it's flagging up. I was like, oh, don't give me that fright, please.
I know, I'd have a heart attack. Now they have all those filters and you can make sure that nothing's plagiarized and you can do all kinds of things. I mean, kids are they're so lucky.
Oh, very true.
And spelling, we used to have to look it up in a dictionary. Now it just tells you that you spelled it wrong.
Do you know, that's the other thing as well. If you're talking to your friend or family or whatever, and they say, oh, did you know so-and-so was in this film? And then you go, no, he wasn't. Oh, yes, he was. You can literally now just whip out your phone and say, all right, he was in that film. I mean, back in the 90s, early
Yeah, I know.
2000s, I mean, the phones were obviously still around, but they weren't there to the extent that they are nowadays. So instead of going home in a bad mood and going, nah, yeah. What I'm saying is, nuh-uh and yaha culture, it's gone way down.
Yeah, I know. Because now you can't storm home and be like, I told you so, because it's right there in front of your face.
I mean, then again, I always remember going home from school and we walked home together as a group, and there was one of the guys who was a bit, well, let's just say full of himself. And I remember one time he watched an episode of The Simpsons. And the reason I knew this is because we got onto the topic of veganism. And, you know, we were stupid teenagers, but he turned around and he said, oh yeah, vegans, they don't eat anything with a shadow. And I went, I'm sorry, what? And that was a joke in the episode the night before. There was an episode of The Simpsons where they make fun of this guy who's a vegan, and he says, oh, I'm so vegan that I don't eat anything with a shadow, you know. It was really stupid, but at the same time, it's like, oh, haha, joke. I think he took that as gospel. Yeah, I had to slowly explain to him that, no, that's not what veganism means. And, you know, he was adamant. He was one of these guys. And again, this is when we were kids. Obviously, we grow up and change. But, you know, he was very adamant saying, no, that's what a vegan is, etc. And I'm like, no, you weirdo. No. It's like, what?
It's so funny. But yeah, I love technology. It's great. There's also aspects about technology that are crazy. There's just so much information. Sometimes it's like information overload. You're like, oh gosh, this is just too much.
Out of curiosity, though, kind of as a final point to touch on, but what are your opinions with, and this might sound a very weird side tangent, but I was talking to my friends in podcasting the other day. Trust me, that's not the name of the book club. We were talking about how, you know how companies nowadays, they're pushing AI and everything, saying, oh, it's the next big thing, and you roll your eyes and you try to move on with your day. And then you see a lot of programs now that have actually managed, and it's really scary, they managed to take people's voices and create podcast episodes.
Oh, yes. I saw that on TikTok, but I saw it for the greater good and not for evil purposes. Now, I've seen AI for evil purposes, like they'll put words in some politicians' mouths.
Yeah.
That's scary. But then I also saw that my daughter's back in school to be a sonographer, which is the ultrasound technician. And she has something called auditory processing disorder, and she's dyslexic. Well, now she can take her notes and put them in a Google, I forgot it was called Google something, and she can create a podcast from her notes where the people are talking to her. It's phenomenal. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had seen it and I told her about it, and that's what she's using to help her with her notes. And so I can see AI for the greater good. And I think that in any technology, we need to learn how to work with it. I think that's just, you're always going to have people that are going to be like, oh no, it's the devil, you know, and then you're going to have people that'll be like, no, we need to work with it. And I can see both aspects of it, I guess.
No, I'm totally with you there, because as you said, it can be obviously used for nefarious purposes, but also it can be an utterly fantastic tool, and it's trying to get that balance, because I feel as if it's not watched very well, I don't mean in terms of just the general podcasting populace, because let's face it, you'll get hundreds of people being like, oh, let me type a prompt in here, and oh, look, I've got a podcast without filler words and mistakes and bloopers. Your podcast has no soul, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I can't imagine having a podcast like yours where, you know, you've got a very calming demeanour and you obviously put in a lot of effort into your podcast, especially in terms of the hypnosis sections. I don't think that, obviously without careful tweaking and things, I genuinely don't think you would be able to replicate that.
Well, what I do with that is I have prompts for my step step down, that's always going to be a general 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your bring up is always going to be a general 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other parts of it, I just kind of tweak it, but I do kind of follow a pattern, and sometimes I'll take things from one and put it in the other, but I think everybody kind of does that. I don't think AI could necessarily make, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I do use ChatGPT to write my copy for my Instagram and for my tags and stuff.
Like show notes and things.
Yeah, when I'm going to put it on YouTube, it has to have a description.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll say, can you please write a description for this topic? And it'll write it for me, and I just copy and paste that. But other than that, I mean, that's great for copy, when you're just needing something to do splash or whatever. And then I also use AI for my thumbnails because for some reason, if I put a different type of background, people like to see the women on my thumbnail, and it can be a woman smiling, it can be this. Well, I kind of ran out of all of the images that I liked on the free, what do you call it, Pixabay?
Oh, yeah.
So I just use AI I'll say, generate a smiling woman. So I just use that. Those are the 3 things that I use it for. And those come in really handy. Tags, descriptions, and AI ladies. You just have to make sure you count their fingers.
Oh. Oh, don't get me.
That's really bad because I had one time I wanted one of somebody drinking a cup of coffee and it was perfect. The only thing is the person was holding the coffee and there was another hand underneath and I just died. I was like, oh my gosh, AI really needs to work on itself.
Oh, yeah. Hands are the big thing. You know that scene out of, is it Ghost? Patrick Swayze and...
Yeah.
You know the scene I'm talking about where they're making the pottery?
Yeah, the ghost or the pottery thing.
So it's like you got one pair of hands, you got another pair of hands. See if you just link really fast and they become a blur, those hands. That is what AI hands are.
I know.
They don't understand. It's a bit like voice recognition in the Scottish accent. Honestly, this is when I think Skynet will take over. When AI gets a hold of, no pun intended, gets a hold of generating hands, and when voice recognition...
We're in trouble.
When voice recognition can understand the Scottish accent, let's face it. Because I remember I got a new phone and I think over time it starts to listen to you, which is creepy in itself, but it starts to understand what you're saying, how you're saying it. I don't have to put on an English accent, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is creepy how when you get in your car to go somewhere, every Saturday I usually go to Aldi. Oh my gosh, it knows that I'm going to Aldi. It'll be like 15 minutes to Aldi. I'm like, oh, how do you know that?
You're out of snacks. Oh, thank you.
That's right.
I know, I always get that as well. As I was saying, if I'm walking with my dog and then Amazon will be like, oh, we see you're running low on poo bags. Are you picking up your dog's poo? Are you being a good citizen? I'm like, yes. Do you want to buy more? I'm like, no, thank you.
It's scary. That part is scary if you're talking about something and your phone happens to be there.
Oh, I'm convinced that they do listen to you. I don't think there's a guy that they've hired to listen in intently, but I definitely think they pick up words and things because I'll be talking about something to my partner or my friends or whatnot, or even on the podcast. I bet you now, as soon as I go away, I'm going to get hundreds of ads for hypnotherapy and...
Duolingo.
Yeah, Duolingo, Blackboards, you know.
That's right.
Honestly, I'll message you, see if I genuinely do get that. I'm going to give you
I know, it's going to be very scary. A Duolingo owl is going to come and attack. You haven't done this in a long time. Don't you want to come back to Japanese? I did that for 2 years. I'm done.
To be fair, it is a hard language to pick up. I mean, it's an amazing language. It's absolutely incredible. But on the flip side, it also has 4 character alphabets, so no.
Yep. Hiragana, katakana. Then there's the one where it starts with a F, I think, where you have the kanji and then they put the hiragana above it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't even know all of their characters over there. It's like, wow, you have so many characters over there to memorize that they put the hiragana on top of it. It's like, wow.
I mean, that is the pros and cons of learning Mandarin, especially because on the one hand, you know, they don't have an alphabet. Someone once told me, or rather asked me, oh, can you teach me the Chinese alphabet? And I nearly spat out my tea. I was like, what alphabet? They have over 5,000 characters. In fact, they probably have way, way more, but I think it's 5,000 characters for casual conversation if you're a native. Yeah, the flip side of that and the positive is that whenever I'm watching an anime or I see something happen in a Japanese show and they use the kanji means exactly the same thing as it does in Chinese. And oh, it's so good, because I'm like, now I don't know how to say that in Japanese, but I know what it means. So
it's like anytime that I can figure out something, if I'm listening to it, I feel like the meme with Leonardo DiCaprio and he's like pointing at the TV and he's holding that glass of whiskey or whatever he has. I'm like, oh, I know that. I know what that says.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I really need to get back into language learning, honestly. That'll be my New Year's resolution, I swear.
Yeah.
2025, it'll be my year for language learning, I swear. He said with optimism. But on that note, Cindy, thank you so much for coming on Chatsunami today and discussing all things hypnotism, dentistry, school,
anime, school, languages.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time. I hope everything turns out okay.
Oh, it absolutely will. I kind of joked about it at the beginning of this episode, but you know how you've got different time zones and you're trying to match them up and everything. You're trying to get the perfect time and you want amazing guests on, but they're in a really, your time zone's absolutely fine, but there's some time zones where you're like, why do you live where you live? Kind of thing. You're like, no. Heartbreaking, but I am super glad that we managed to get this arranged.
Oh, I am too.
So first of all, thank you so much for coming on. And secondly, and most importantly, where can these amazing listeners at home find your content?
They can find me anywhere you listen to your podcast, Hypno Wellness. And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm Hypno Wellness 1. And I think it's on Twitter too that I'm Hypnus Wellness 1.
Yeah.
Somebody else was Hypno Wellness. I don't know who they are, but they stole it.
I thought you were going to have a Liam Neeson moment there. I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you are, but I have a set of skills.
Set of hypnosis skills.
I love him on Twitter.
Yeah.
I know why they picked him for that part now.
Yeah. But sorry, is there anywhere else that these lovely listeners can find your content?
Nope, that's the only place. And YouTube, you can find me on YouTube too. I think I'm Hypno Wellness 1 on YouTube also.
Yeah, just look for the smiling AI ladies. Yeah.
That's right. Now that is my picture in the little corner though.
True. No, that's true.
I didn't AI that one.
No, that's real, yeah.
That one's real, but the rest of the people, they might not be real.
I was going to say, a lot of your followers would be like, wow, she looks so realistic for AI.
No, that's great AI.
To be fair, if someone, God forbid, if they don't like your video, then at least you can blame it on the AI and be like, oh, don't blame me, blame the AI lady,
I know. I wish I could if my voice messes up or, oh, it's AI. Hi, I'm AI.
Beep boop. And of course, if you want to catch more content from ourselves, then you can check us out on our website, chatsunami.com, as well as all good podcast providers. I also want to point out that you can operate heavy machinery and or drive a car, whatever takes your fancy when listening to Chatsunami. I also want to thank our amazing Pandalorian patrons, Robotic Battle Toaster and Sonia. Thank you so much, as always, for supporting the show. And of course, if you want to be a Pandalorian patron, you can check us out on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Chatsunami, where you can get a whole host of different behind-the-scenes content, exclusive episodes, full-length commentary tracks. No hypnosis, sadly. You have to go to Hypno Wellness for that. So once you're done with that, go over to Hypno Wellness, please. Honestly, Cindy, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
As always, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated. Welcome to Chatsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Chatsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our sub-series, Chatsunami, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that sounds sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe,
Stay awesome, and most importantly,
Stay hydrated.
Discover the transformative world of hypnosis and how it can lead you to a happier, healthier you. I'm Cindy Brainerd, a certified hypnotherapist from the Hypno Wellness podcast, and your guide to finding wellness through the power of hypnosis. Join us every Wednesday for insightful topics and Thursdays for empowering hypnosis sessions. Remember, Hypno Wellness, your path to a better you.